Welcome back to the Deliberate Leaders Podcast. I am your host and executive business coach, Allison Dunn. Our topic today is leading with clarity, and our guest is Marc Lesser. He is an author, CEO, and executive coach, as well as a Zen teacher. He founded and was CEO of 3 companies and helped develop a mindfulness program inside of Google's headquarters. Marc, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Excellent. I love to kick these off with a quick, deliberate conversation. What would be your number one leadership tip for our listeners?
Don't avoid conflict.
Any tips on, sometimes people can't even recognize that there is a conflict.
Yeah. I think this, number one tip, maybe backing up a little bit from that one is practice self-awareness and find great support.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Excellent tips. Thank you very much. So don't avoid conflict. Number one tip. Marc, you say that the key to healthy relationships and effective workplaces is compassionate accountability. Can you explain what compassionate accountability is?
Sure. Well, let's start with accountability, which again is a word that's kicked around a lot. Not a very popular word. People generally, although we like holding others accountable, right? But we don't like ourselves being held. It kind of has this, feels a little bit like painful or torturous. But really, it's about alignment, like starting with aligning with what is important to us. In what way are we aligned with our values, our goals, our visions of what success looks like? And then accountability, as it's usually thought of, is in relationship with another person. Is there alignment? Are we clear about what we're trying to achieve, and are we clear about how we're trying to achieve it, how we're wanting to work together? And by itself, accountability can get a bit cold, right? Like it doesn't necessarily have a lot of care, trust, or heart. So that's why the compassionate accountability is just such a, I think, important conversation, as you just said, in terms of building relationships or cultures that are sustainable and effective. I think we need the human element, but we also need that kind of clarity, which is why I ended up, naming my book "Finding Clarity" when someone asked me, "Well, what is this really about?" And it takes this kind of aspirational, ongoing practice to be clear, to practice with compassionate accountability.
Marc, I would say in the work that I do with organizations, accountability, like everyone says, how do I hold them accountable, right? Or how do I create a level of accountability? And the better question often is our goal clear? Are we aligned on that? Because once you do have that, accountability comes so easily.
Yeah. So because then it's just right. Are we clear? Are we aligned? And then let's check in regularly, because things change, right? The situations change, people change. Sometimes we think that we're clear. We thought that we were clear, but actually we're not as clear as we thought we were about, what success looks like. It's interesting, things that seem so deliberate or obvious are often need. We are pretty complex creatures, we humans. Our ability, we fill in gaps really easily with whatever thoughts and ideas we might have. So it's a beautiful and important thing, right? This, are we clear, and coming back and checking in.
Yeah. You also used one of my favorite words, which is alignment. What would be, I know that my listeners are experiencing at points in any given day or week or year, misalignment with either their direct reports, the company's direction. What is a process, or what are the ways that you would suggest to find alignment between individuals, departments, teams?
Yeah, I mean, it means actually having real conversations, genuine conversations, not right. So not avoiding conflict.
Original tip. Started
Original,
more
orig,
conflict.
orig, original tip, right?
Yeah.
So, I think finding alignment perhaps is the other side of the coin of not avoiding conflict, right? Not avoiding, I mean, maybe it would be gentler to have said, don't avoid misalignment. Work toward alignment. Um, and again, it sounds so obvious, but yeah, I was even thinking of, uh, it's funny, the situations that stay with us. You know, I can remember a situation in which I was the CEO and two women who worked for me. I was on my way out the door and they stopped me to ask me. They asked what was kind of a simple question, like, uh, when are we going to do the next stage of our, branding and website development, right? Simple question, right? Um, I heard it as a criticism. I heard it as, why is this taking so long? Or when are we going to get our act together? So it's interesting because there's often, there's the words that we use, and then there's what they mean,
Yeah.
the gaps that we're filling in. There's the words that we use, and there's the emotions that we feel and the stories that we tell. So this is part of, like, okay, when are, how is this project going? Tell me more. Is there something about, it's not just around aligning around the date, it's aligning around, how's it going? How's this project going? What's working well? What could be better? What is your personal investment in this? Do you have some doubts about this? So it's so interesting, right? The how how is this project going can mean and feel and have a whole bunch of different nuances. So this is the joy and the work of uh, alignment and of accountability.
Yeah. Just to kind of carry on, because the example you just gave, like, I heard it in a completely different way. Like, they're excited to get it started. When is the next stage going to start? Right.
Right.
And really wanting to know, like, where are we at and how, like, what's happening next, because they're excited.
Yeah, yeah. Great add-on there. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, again,
Perception.
yeah, whole range, right?
Mhm.
Or a colleague or maybe someone that you report to says, can you have that report to me by Monday? Right? Again, that could be great. Wow, he's excited about this. Or, man, he's this person, clearly there's doubt. Is there doubt or is there excitement?
Mhm.
Uh, that, like, let's dig a little deeper. Let's be a little uh, and and often, if there's some feeling that there might be doubt, we might choose to not go there, right? Like, man, why would I go there? Well, why wouldn't you go there? Why wouldn't you say, huh, um, I have this strange feeling about that. Can we, I'm curious if there's anything underneath that or behind that. Are you as excited about this project as I am, or is there something else I should know?
Like, did you need it sooner? Absolutely. That's on par. I'm going to work on it on Monday. It may be sooner than 5. Does that work? Kind of
Right.
conversation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So digging deeper. So I think the key to that is to recognize there's an emotion, there's a trigger, or there's energy that you're feeling, and it could be good or bad, and
Mhm.
to make sure that it's being reciprocated and that you're in alignment to the end outcome, whatever that it may be, is just a report or something else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, right. So there's, uh, there's alignment and accountability about, you know, time frames, about how we're feeling and how what our approach is. You know, in what way are we, where are we on the, excitement and dread spectrum, perhaps?
Right. I think my next question, I almost want to play the yin and the yang of it because I think it's sometimes, depending on how you approach things, what is going to be more meaningful to you. So we talk about compassionate accountability. What are the benefits of achieving that?
Yeah, I think, using the language that we were just using, there's real power and effectiveness in alignment and in getting things done, as well as in individual well-being, relationship well-being, cultural well-being. Because without that, um, there can be unexpressed gaps, or the yeah, the I have this image, way back. Uh, I used to work with draft horses. I was involved in farming with horses, and this image of the effectiveness that there is when horses are pulling together,
Right.
and the ineffectiveness and jerkiness when they're not. And the same is true for any relationship or any team or any company. When people are working at cross purposes, or there's a lack of pulling together, right? So that's this is the real incredible benefit of, compassionate accountability, of alignment combined with care and trust.
Yeah. And you kind of did the yang of it for me. So like, it feels jerky. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not going smoothly as it could if everyone had a clear idea of how, like, what move to make next together. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and what that might, how that plays out is that things aren't getting done, right? Things are not what I thought was being accomplished, and what you thought was going to be accomplished isn't.
Mhm. You kind of tie three unusual people together. So, what can Homer Simpson, the Buddha, and Alice in Wonderland teach us about leadership?
Well, Homer is, I think, in some way, most of us, maybe all of us, have what I think of as the inner Homer, which is the inner victim, the person that is always avoiding conflict, the person that always, has something to complain about. Everything is going wrong, um, and person who doesn't want to be responsible. I know this, and I call this, why does everything have to be so hard? Voice, that's one of the voices, or uh, yeah. I've become a more of a student of Homer and Homerisms, and yeah. And then when that question came up, why does everything have to be so hard? That made me think of the historical Buddha, who uh, is also asking the question about, well, why is life difficult? Why is there so much pain? And and his answer had to do, I think, with uh, in some way, avoiding conflict, in
Mhm.
some way, uh, not dealing with things like impermanence, um, things like that. There are things about being human that just are painful and difficult, that we need to learn again and again to face and transform. So Buddha's great teaching was that through not avoiding difficulty, through not avoiding pain, suffering, difficulty, that we can learn to understand them and turn that understanding into greater um, acceptance, and even a sense of well-being and joy. And then, um, uh, as I was writing about this, then Alice in Wonderland appeared. I thought, well, yeah, what's the practice? What's the ongoing, on the ground practice? And it's about being curious. The practice of, curiouser and curiouser, bringing curiosity to um, almost every situation as much as possible is, I think, um, for leaders, for any relationships, for this human life, right? Uh, be curious, not furious, is the kind of the first practice of compassionate accountability.
Okay, love that. My next question is, you kind of quote difficult people. How can we shift our thinking around difficult people?
Yeah, I think it starts with recognizing that we can all be difficult people, and it depends on the situation. Yeah,
Seriously.
seriously, yeah, especially when there are, power, when there's roles involved, when there's status involved. There's going to be, people. That was a big lesson for me as a leader to see that some people found my style challenging or difficult. Now, it's important, I think, to not dismiss that there are difficult people. There are people who are kind of toxic, who can be kind of toxic stress makers, who can be like the bulls in the china shop, are just going around creating a stream of stress and difficulty through their way. But I think those people are fairly rare these days, and less. I think those people are not rising in organizations. I think maybe they used to more. That people cared less about emotional intelligence than they do now. Again, there certainly are exceptions. So I think where your question and this topic gets really interesting is there are difficulties in relationships. How do we deal with difficult situations? How do we deal with when people are angry with me? How do we deal with all of the because when there's a lack of alignment, then we've got a difficult situation, right? And how do we more skillfully work toward alignment? How do we acknowledge lack of alignment and find ways uh, to work with it?
In You are set to aim to make a significant social impact with your book, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share with us what that is.
Well, I think to me this work of compassionate accountability is the maybe the undergirdings of get not only getting things done, but I think once we move beyond our usual kind of fight or flight response, there's a way that it can open our hearts and open our minds to create a kind of sense of safety and inclusiveness and not needing to be defensive. And I think as we as leaders, as people uh, do this on an individual basis, and how we influence each other, this is the kind of social impact that I think is has the potential to bring the kind of positive change that I think most of us want to see.
Mhm.
A world that is more connected, more generous, and more effective at the same time.
Mhm. I always thank you. I appreciate that, and I think that that's a beautiful purpose for the book. You know what I mean? For to have that type of social impact. I was reading a statistic, and they were talking about like the decline of our youngest generation actually um, having less compassion and less maybe heightened emotional connected. Because we do so much screen time and whatnot. Um, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot written about that we're in the midst of this giant social experiment and I think it got vastly exacerbated with the pandemic. But even for me, my work life went from 100% in person to almost 100% online. And I think that um, in some way, my experience is that the online world, can, if there already is any lack of connection, it can exacerbate that, right? And there definitely is something that's lost. Even though I've been a big proponent of how much can get done online, and I think there is truth to that, but um, I recently I've been working with a leadership team where it was online, and then we recently had an in-person, a 2-day offsite retreat, and I was just blown away at how much happened at that in-person retreat that could just never have happened
Online.
online. So I think for young people and for everyone, there is time for us to get back out there.
Yeah.
I've been a little slow myself, but although I have tonight I have 3 groups in a row that I'm hosting at my house.
Outstanding.
Uh,
So
tonight
bringing
tonight
it
is
to
my
you.
tonight is my CEO group.
Excellent.
Last night was my group of uh, science and mindfulness teachers that get together once a month. And the day before that, I had a half-day meditation retreat at my house. And I was like, I like this. I like this being in person stuff. So yeah,
You should have added a host facilitator to your bio.
yes, definitely. No, I love being able to be part of creating safe, connected, alive spaces. And I was with someone yesterday who's starting a nonprofit that's working with high school students and young people just to do that. And I'd like to do more of that with many different audiences. Let's create safe spaces for each other.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Mark, your book is new. Is it out?
It is out. It's been out almost a couple months now.
Okay, fantastic. So you can find his book, Finding Clarity: How Compassionate Accountability Builds Vibrant Relationships, Thriving Workplaces, and Meaningful Lives. Mark, I want to make sure that our listeners know what is the best way to connect and or follow you.
My website is marclesser.net, marclesser.net. Lots of writing and audio, video, lots of resources there. So come visit.
Fantastic. Mark, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.